Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you as always for being here. Super excited about today's project, so let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. All right, this is a wreath form I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and then I have a whole big bag of Spanish moss that I had gotten a while back from the Hobby Lobby, I believe. Yes, Hobby Lobby. I think it said $7.99 there. I don't think it was on sale when I bought it. It's been in my stash for quite some time, so I'm honestly not certain, but it was a nice big bag, and I thought it was worth the price. So I'm using, as you saw, some hot glue, and I'm going to cover my entire wreath form with the hot glue. Well, with the hot glue, but then with the moss. That's the goal. Cover the wreath form with the moss using hot glue. So I'm being pretty generous with it. You just want to make sure that you don't burn yourself. And once I had it all covered, I was using all those little scraps that had kind of fallen onto the work surface to kind of fill in any of the little holes. So just be mindful, you don't want to burn yourself as you're doing that. Now I pulled out this scrap of ribbon that I had in my stash. It was the style that I wanted. I was wishing that it were a little bit thicker. I think this is a 1 inch, and I was really hoping for a 2-inch ribbon, but it was the style that I wanted, and I didn't have one that I liked that was wider. I thought about burlap. I had actually pulled one out, and it wasn't what I wanted. So I was going to make this work. I thought for a second, well, maybe I'll wrap it around a second time and do it that way. And I didn't like the way that looked as much. So I went back to my original idea, and I was going to tie a bow, but then I ultimately decided, you know what, I shouldn't be tying the bow right there. I don't know. I just kept messing with it until this is how my thought process works, you guys. I have to kind of play with it to figure out what it is that I want to do, and then I do it. So all part of crafting and creativity, right? So once I had it figured out, now I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot, actually, because I decided if I were tying a bow, it might end up pulling it out, and I needed something that's going to be solid to start with. So I've got my base with my knot, and actually when I'm looking at this, it looks kind of cute just with the knot in it. So I probably could have left it like that, but I am going to create a little bow. I feel like all of these projects today, I was making them more complicated than they needed to be with the way that I was making these bows. So make your bows however is easiest for you. I am just doing the loop and tying another section of ribbon around the center of it. Going to tie that off, and then I'm going to be attaching it to the knot. But before I attach it to the knot, I want to trim off those little tails that are sticking out there. Cut them really, really close to the knot, and then I'm going to use some hot glue just to make sure that my knot doesn't end up coming undone, because I did cut the ends really, really close to the knot because I didn't want them to be visible, so I wanted to get rid of those. So now I am tying my bow with the tails to the knot and making sure that that's all lined up. I messed with it for a little bit until I got it the way I wanted it. And now I'm going to actually secure it to the wreath itself. I want to make sure that it's not going to slip, that my bow is going to end up staying right there and not, wrapping. If you want your bow at the top, or if you want to be able to move it up and down on the length of your hanger, by all means, you don't need to glue it down. This was my preference and how I wanted to have the wreath hang. Excuse me. So I've got my bow all set, and now I am grabbing some florals. I've got my little butterfly. Now you could totally just leave the wreath with just the moss. If you like that look and want to leave it just really plain, you certainly can do that. I am using some red tulips and then some lavender. I got all of these items from the picks, I should say, from Amazon. I've had them in my stash for a while. I think I have these in my Amazon store, so you'll be able to find them in the link in my description box if that's of interest. The link is to my Amazon store, and then you'd be able to find them in there. And I am just going to keep working with it, trying to figure out where I want things. As you know, if you've watched me for any length of time, I am very visual. I like to see how things look before I commit. But once I have them the way that I think that they are looking nice to my own eye, I'm going to go ahead and glue them all down. So you saw me starting to use my hot glue there. And I'm just going to continue to work my way around the part of the wreath that I want covered with my florals. Now I've got this little butterfly. Again, you don't have to put this on here. In fact, I'm kind of wondering if I should have left it off because it is very blingy as opposed to the very earthy kind of style of this wreath. So I may end up taking the butterfly off later. I don't know. But at the time, I kind of liked the idea of having just a little something extra on here. But I absolutely love this. Added a little bit more of the lavender to the top there. And like I said, I'm in love with this wreath, but let me know what you think. I'm going to show it to you on display here in 2 seconds. DIY number 2. All right, this is going to be a very quick and easy project. I had picked this up from Michael's the end of last season and I got it 50% off. I believe it was originally $14.99, so I got it for $7.50. It was either 50 or 60% off. I can't remember, but it was a great price. I was looking at my stash for little pink pom-poms because I had blue and green, but I didn't have any pink. So I opted to just do white for all of them, and I'll bring some color in with some ribbon in a minute. Excuse me, but just fluffing up my little pom-poms, getting them all nice and round, and then going to secure them with some hot glue. Just a little bit of hot glue is needed, getting those all fastened, just making sure that they are, centered that on their little bunny bums. So once I had that all set, I grabbed out some of my ribbon. The first one that I grabbed, where did I go? Oh my goodness. There I am. I guess I was looking for a little bit in the ribbon thing and didn't realize it when I was editing all this out. Sorry about that. But the first one I grabbed was my purple. This is a light purple, like a lavender color. These ribbons that I'm going to be using are all wired ribbons. For this project, you probably don't have to use wired ribbon necessarily. It would probably work just fine with regular ribbon if that's all you have in your stash. But like I said, I'm just making things difficult for myself with the ribbon for this particular video. I don't know why I chose to do all of my bows like this, but I'm just creating a loop, pinching it in the middle, trying to keep it from falling apart on me as I put it together. I think I ended up using a little bit of hot glue there. Yep, a little bit of hot glue there to just kind of get it to stay put, because this is a satin ribbon, so it's a little slick also, which makes it a little harder to work with. For that center, the ribbon is too wide, so I kind of folded it in thirds, and then I'm going to wrap it around the middle of the bow. And once I have that all around the center of my bow where I want it, I will add a little bit more hot glue just to secure it there. So there is that. And now I'm just trimming off some of the little frayed ends because I was manipulating it enough that it started to fray. So I just wanted to get that cleaned up a little bit. Now I'm not quite ready to commit to where this little bow is going to live on my bunnies. So once I have it all set, I'm just going to set it down for a moment. I do place it on one of the bunnies, but I end up moving that in a little bit. So I've got it right there for the time being. Grabbing out my next ribbon. This one is going to be a yellow. It's a different style ribbon. It's got kind of a yellow on yellow kind of diagonal stripe to it, which I thought was really, really pretty. And going to do the same bow for that. With that color, you can see I just moved the purple bow. And then I'm going to pull out my light pink ribbon and make a third bow, same exact way. And this is where I decided I wanted to put them all. Just gluing them down with some hot glue. Again, super simple, quick project. I love this. I am so happy with this. You could certainly paint it. I opted not to because I really liked the way that the kind of distressed wood looked. So it really is up to you, but I wanted to do something quick and simple, especially for the new crafters out there who might feel a little bit of, a little intimidated by some of the more complex projects, but you know, this I think is super sweet and it really doesn't need a whole lot more, but you can do it however you would like. Let me know what you think of this. DIY number 3. All right, I have some wood rounds. These were a pack of 6 from the Hobby Lobby. I think it was $7.99 for the pack of 6, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm just pulling one of those out, and then I've got my Dollar Tree decal that I'll be using in a little while. First, I grabbed out one of my little containers. This came in a pack of 6, I think, from the Dollar Tree. You can see the little white lid up top. I'm just gonna mix some paint. This is my lilac chalk paint, and I'm going to add some Adirondack white. The lilac was a little bit more pink than the shade of purple I was looking for. It was also a little darker than what I wanted. So I'm just mixing a bunch of colors in here. This is crystalline, I think is what it's called. I wanted it a little bit more blue, but I didn't want it darker. So that was why I first went with the crystalline, but it ended up not quite doing the job for me. So I added some provincial blue, also by Home Decor. And I just continued to mix the colors until I got to a shade that was pleasing to my eye. Here I'm adding more of the lilac, and I ended up adding a little bit more white. But once I got it where I wanted it, I went ahead and gave my wood round a good coat of paint on the front, and then once that was dry, I also did the back. The great thing about paint is you can just mix whatever color you are looking for. So you really only need a few basic colors to be able to get pretty much any color in the rainbow. So and you can make it lighter or darker with white, or I think, well, I don't want to say add black to something to make it darker. Maybe that's what you do. I'm not really positive. So let me know in the comments if you know how to make paint darker, like a darker shade of the same color. But now, once everything was completely dry, both sides, I went ahead and grabbed my decal. You can see that it's cut in half. So I'm just being really conscientious. Just want to make sure that it's getting all lined up in the middle with the seam, but that the whole thing is also centered. Now, because it's a wall decal, you can see I'm able to set it down and lift it back up again. Now, I'm also not pressing it all the way down. If I were to press it all the way down, I would still be able to lift it up again because, again, it's a wall decal and it's made to be able to be removed without damaging your wall. But I'm just trying to make things easy for myself also, right? So I'm not going to smooth it down until I am 100% satisfied with where I have it. So I'm just going to keep playing with it, making sure that I've got all of my little edges lined up with my seams, because I want it to look uniform and like one piece, and like it wasn't just put together with a seam in the middle. Like I want the seam to be as invisible as possible, right? So I'm just taking my time, and I noticed I got a little black piece of probably dried paint or something in there. I don't know. Something that was floating around on my table somehow got in there. So I lifted that up and got that out. and just going to seal it down again. Then I grabbed my little burnishing tool and I used that to smooth it out even more. And this did not need a coat of Mod Podge. It was perfectly fine, probably because I had that painted surface, right? So now these are little pretty paper flowers that I had in my stash. I've had them for quite some time from Michael's, and I've used them on a few different projects, but I figured, you know what, give it a little bit more interest and give it a little bit of 3D kind of action here. So I used them on here just kind of randomly. And now grabbing out my pink ribbon again, I'm going to make a little hanger for it. I was trying to figure out which way I wanted my little loop to go here. So I'll flip it one way and then the other, and I'll get myself sorted here momentarily. There we go. So this is the way that I'm going to hang my little sign. I'm flipping it over, adding some hot glue here, just making sure that it's nice and secure. Add some more. And then once I had that on there, I decided I was going to put a little, you got it, a bow at the top. So grabbing a little bit more ribbon, I'm going to make another loop bow because why not? I haven't tormented myself enough with making these little loop bows yet, apparently. So doing the exact same thing, gonna go ahead and grab another piece of the ribbon. This time I do want it a little wider. So I'm going to use it its full width. Wrap it around the middle, get some hot glue in there to secure it, and then I'll be attaching it to the base of the hanger at the top of the wood round. So just making sure I've got it the way I want it, and it's ready to be adhered to the top. So applying that, and then because I do like to have all of my backs finished, I did opt to add a little bit more ribbon to the back just to cover up where I had those ends for my little hanger. So folding under the ends on either end, excuse me, and making sure that I have none of the fraying ends sticking out. So I kind of folded them over on the diagonal behind the main piece of the ribbon so that they weren't going to end up sticking out at the edges. Hopefully that's making sense. But just kind of glued that down so that it would be easier to work with. And then I used a generous amount of glue to adhere it to the back of the piece, just covering up the ends. And then I'm going to use a little bit more hot glue just along the seam there so that the whole thing is nice and secure. And I'm sorry you can't see it there, but I did the same thing again, just along that edge. I'm just making sure that everything is nice and secure and trying not to burn myself in the process. But let me know what you think of this one. Now it's time for a shout out timeout. Beautiful rose. These are so sweet. I especially love the blingy birdhouse. That's so pretty. And cute Kathy, another birdhouse and some beautiful signs. Love it. I would love to give you a shout out as well. If you have interest, just send me a picture or an email, I should say, at craftedbycorie@gmail.com. DIY number 4. All right, I have some little canvases. I believe these are 6x8s. I could be mistaken. I think they're 6x8s, maybe 8x10s. I don't know. They came in a pack of, it was 10 or 12. I believe I picked them up either from, I think it was Hobby Lobby actually. Michael's has packs like this too, so it could have been Michael's, but I think they worked out to be something like $1.30 a piece in the pack that I got. So I thought it was a good deal. I went ahead and cut away the canvas on each of these. I'm sure that you've seen me and or other crafters do the same thing. And then I went through and removed the staples. You don't necessarily have to do this because they will be covered up. Some crafters I know will leave them in. They bother me just knowing that they're there, so I take them out. I'm just using a flathead screwdriver to kind of dig in underneath and lift them up enough so that I can then pull them out the rest of the way with my needle nose pliers. Sometimes I can grab them with the pliers right off the bat, but more times than not, I find that I need a little extra lift in there. So once I've got it lifted with the screwdriver, you can see I can just come right through and kind of roll them out with my pliers. All right, so I am still out of spackle and wood putty. I need to get some more. I am filling in these crevices, these little slat areas, with my hot glue. Certainly works. It's a little bit more labor intensive because once I had all of those filled in, I needed to come in with my little razor blade and shave off the excess glue. And then I came in and sanded the frame just along the edges and making sure that everything was relatively smooth, right? Now, these frames are not perfect. I don't care that they're not perfect because I kind of like the distressed look. And in fact, I noticed as I was painting it, it had a little bit of a gouge in it. And I decided, you know what, we're going to lean into that. I grabbed my screwdriver at first thinking that the wood was softer than it was and that I could kind of rough it up with that. But yeah, I ended up needing my hammer. And it was actually kind of hard to bang dents into, even with the hammer. But I went ahead and did that. And then I continued to paint with my Adirondack white chalk paint. I gave everything a good coat of paint. I only did one single coat on each of these and made sure that I got all the edges, right? Especially at the back. Well, I want to get all the edges at the front too, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss the back edges because I didn't want any of the wood showing. I don't mind the distressed stuff, but I don't know. You know, I could have sanded these to have some of the wood show, but I felt like it was just that really young looking wood. It wasn't aged wood, right? So if I'd wanted it to look distressed, I felt like it needed to be older looking wood. I don't, that was just what I had in my head. So there are a lot of different ways that you could decorate these frames. But I went ahead and cut down the canvases next because I am going to be reapplying them to the back side of the frames. So here I've got my staple gun. I'm just going to stretch the canvases as best as I can and going to staple them all around the edges. Excuse me. So once I get it all stapled around the edges, I did use my hammer just to knock in some of my staples if they didn't go all the way in for whatever reason, if I'd lifted my hand up too soon or whatever. But I just made sure they were all secure. And now I'm ready for my Dollar Tree decals. I think these are so cute. I had shared these in a Dollar Tree haul a while back, and I've been looking forward to using them. I knew right when I got them what I wanted to do with them. And so here I am finally getting to use them. But going to put each of these little decals centered in the middle of the frames, just making sure I'm getting them all lined up. Again, because they're decals, if I set one down and it's not quite centered or it looks a little crooked, I can peel it right back up and reposition it. Now, at this point, I wasn't sure if they were going to be adhering well enough for me to kind of leave them alone. Part of me was thinking, oh, you know, if I don't have to Mod Podge them, I could always flip them out with other things if I ever get bored with it or just want to change it out for the season or something. They did end up lifting a little bit as I was working with them, so at the end, you'll see me Mod Podging them. But for right now, I'm going to create a hanger for them. So I've got this wire that I pulled out of my stash. This had come off of, I think it was either, what do they call that? Hardware cloth? I think I actually remembered what it was called. It was either hardware cloth or chicken wire. But this had been holding that together and I saved it. Because why not? You can always use wire for something, right? So I cut off 3 lengths of wire that are probably about 4 inches longer than my frames are wide. And you're going to see why in just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and stretch this across the frame to make my hanger and staple it down, leaving an inch or two off of each edge, and then I'm going to twist that around. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can do hangers. You don't have to do it with the wire. I actually like the wire method, but I had originally been looking for soda can tabs. I thought that those would work really well, and I normally have them in my stash, but I must have used them all because I couldn't find them. So that would work. If you have a sawtooth hanger that you want to use, you could do that. You could use twine, jute cord, anything like that. I opted to use the wire here. So it tends to work really well, and it's going to keep it secure for a really long time. So I did that on each of the backs of the frames. Again, just stapling it down, knocking it in if needed, and then twisting it around itself to seal it off. So here they are, and here's my matte Mod Podge. I used the matte because these decals actually had a matte finish to begin with, which I liked. And then I'm just going to go over the entire surface and making sure that I'm getting all of the edges really good. And then I did go over the entire canvas in each instance because I wanted the surface to have a consistent sheen. I didn't want it to look like I had just glued something over the top of the canvas, which clearly that is exactly what we're doing, but I wanted it to look like it was all one cohesive image or canvas. So let me know what you think. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. If you enjoyed the projects, remember to give me a big thumbs up, leave me a comment, let me know which was your favorite, and until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Take good care. Bye.